Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. It is September and that means, at least in my part of the country, it is back to school season. Everyone's returning to schools, my high schoolers are going back to school, my college kids are going back to school, and this presents a very unique time for us as body piercers. So I wanted to talk about one of the biggest issues that I see crop up this time of year. We are going to talk about piercings and school sports. Now, every year, without fail, one of the most unique challenges that I as a piercer have to help my clients overcome is figuring out balancing getting, having, and healing piercings with participating in school sports. And I know this can be a uniquely frustrating challenge, especially for my high schoolers and my early college kids, because you look at high-level professional sports and very often they are allowed to play games with jewelry in, with piercings in. I regularly see photos of athletes winning games, scoring big touchdowns, finishing the race, and showing off the piercings and the jewelry that they're wearing while they're doing it. So it can be incredibly frustrating as a young athlete who's also passionate about piercings and body modification to find that the new piercing you got over the summer or the piercing you plan to get at the beginning of the school year, you now can't have in for practices, can't have in for games, and now we have this issue we have to try and figure out. How do we balance piercings in school sports? So the first and the biggest consideration if you're going to do school sports and you have piercings is, can you have it? Do you have to hide it? Or can you really not have anything at all? And this is going to vary completely sport to sport, district to district, practice versus game versus tournament. It's going to look a little bit different for everyone, but you really should familiarize yourself with these rules beforehand. I have lots of clients who play sports who are totally allowed to have their piercings in, and it's no problem at all. Fun fact, most of the professional athletes and Olympians that I work on can wear all their piercings for all of their competitions, all of their games, no problem. But we're not talking about pro-level sports here, we're talking about school sports. So if you're one of the lucky few and your team or your event is going to let you have stuff, great. The majority of my students find that they can have it for practices and localized games, but if they're going to a higher level tournament, like they're competing in regionals or nationals, they have to be able to hide it for those things. Folks may find that even in their local smaller games, they have to hide it for any games. And some folks may have a coach that's so strict that they don't even want to see it at practice. And of course, the most strict is when you are not allowed to have any piercings, any jewelry in, anything at all, kind of no matter what, and coaches and refs are like actively checking players' ears and noses and looking for any form of piercing. So the first step in dealing with this is figuring out what the regulations for your sport and your league are and making a note of that. It's important to understand when you will be able to wear jewelry and when you won't. It's equally important to understand what the consequences, if you do have jewelry in or if you do get caught with something you're supposed to be hiding, might be. It's one thing if it's just going to be a small penalty, but it's another thing entirely if you end up sitting out the game completely or potentially being kicked out of the competition or the tournament because you have a piece of jewelry in. And again, those rules vary greatly sport to sport and league to league. So you need to figure out what the rules are for your sport. Now the good news is that most folks these days, it's 2023, kids have piercings, people understand this, especially when so many pro athletes are rocking piercings. I would say most leagues, most sports, you're allowed to have it, it just needs to be hidden at big games, big tournaments, and big events. This leads us to the unique challenge of how can we best hide our piercings, but also when can we hide our piercings? So let's get a little bit more into that. The when question is really the most important one. Most piercings on average are going to take somewhere around 6 to 9 months to fully heal. This is ideally how long you want to wait before wearing retainers, taking things in and out, having to cover them creatively with bandages or headbands. So if you got a brand new piercing in August and your first game is at the end of September, it's not really going to be a great idea for you to be taking that in and out for a retainer yet. Can we if we absolutely have to? Yes. Is it the best thing for your piercing? No. It can cause irritation bumps, it can cause swelling, it can cause disruptions with the healing. It's definitely not an ideal situation. So research the rules and requirements for your team, your league. Look at your schedule for games and tournaments and try and plan thoughtfully around that. I have clients who will reach out to me as soon as they get all their information for the school year and tell me when exactly their games and tournaments are, what the rules are surrounding them, and what piercings they're looking to get done, and we will collaborate together to figure out a timeline where they can get some piercings and get them healing and have them be hopefully healed enough in time to be swapped into retainers or hidden for the game. And we really carefully time what piercings we do when, what type of jewelry we start it with, all around their team schedule to make sure that they can both safely get these piercings that they want and still play in all of their games and all of their tournaments and not have to be benched or penalized because they had this piercing or jewelry in. This is also really important because there's a wide variety of different retainers out there that are designed for hiding piercings with all sorts of different pros and cons, and there are also different times during the healing process that you can wear them. Now, I have an entire blog post on my website that goes over various forms of retainers super in depth. If you're going to need to hide piercings for sports, I really strongly suggest that you read this article. It's comparing and contrasting all the different types of retainers, lots of pros and cons, and I really thought about sports and hiding things for sports while I was writing this. So I will link that in the description box down below. But there are so many different retainer types. Arguably my favorite for sports are these, the Chaos Heart Retainer. They're made of silicone, they're soft and squishy, they come in a lot of different skin tones. They hold makeup very well because of the texture of silicone, so just like a tiny bit of foundation or concealer, and they really do blend right in with the skin around them. My big complaint with things like glass and plastic retainers is that they still have like a little bit of shine and a little bit of reflectiveness to them, and from across the field, a ref who's kind of a jerk about piercings is really easily going to be able to see those slightly reflective retainers, and you're totally going to get called out on it. But because the Chaos retainers are made of silicone, they really can't be worn in anything but a very well-healed piercing. Silicone is a very porous material. So like I mentioned earlier, that timing with when we do the piercings and how long they take to be fully healed is really important. If we time things well and you're able to wear something like these heart retainers in time for big games and tournaments, that's like my ideal situation. That's what I'd like to have happen. But that often requires a lot of careful time and planning. Now there are other retainers that work. Plastic and glass retainers are ones that you'll see very often. I do find that both of those are a little bit more breakable. I don't love the use of either for sports because if you're going to end up getting hit in the head hard enough or falling or sliding, it's really easy situations for those types of retainers to be damaged and come out. So my other alternative are the Neometal textured discs. They're hide at ends. These are great. They're titanium discs that are sandblasted and anodized to the color of like a freckle or a mole. Because they're titanium, they can be put right on your post while you're healing. I can pierce you with them. They aren't going to be like a perfect skin tone match. Again, the goal here is like freckle or mole, maybe even blackhead. The goal is not like perfect match with your skin tone, but they're made of metal, they're durable. I'm not super worried about them breaking or getting damaged while you're playing sports. And these can be comfortably worn in brand new piercings, still healing piercings. So if we maybe didn't time things super great, or if we thought we could have our piercing for a certain event and now we can't, these are a really good alternative. Figuring out what retainer or what way to hide your piercing is really going to depend on you, your unique situation, your sport, how strict your refs are. So I would really strongly suggest finding an experienced, reputable piercer and someone local who you can visit often and work with them to figure out what the best option for retaining your piercing is going to be. However, I do have some pro tips for you when it comes to hiding piercings with alternative methods that aren't retainers, and these work great in a pinch. My absolute favorite method, and I don't know that anything will ever beat this, is using like a wide headband. These are great to keep in your sports bag to always have around for emergencies, especially if a teammate needs it. But I want you to find those headbands that are super wide, like that literally covers like 8 inches of your head all the way around, where like just the crown of your head, just a little bit of hair or ponytail sticks out over it. Put that on, but leave it over the top half of your ears. Depending on how it fits, it can almost completely cover your ears, and this is a perfect way to just disguise any cartilage piercings or any ear piercings. And it's super easy to pass off as like, oh, my bangs just get in my face while I'm playing. I've just got a weird haircut. I need like a big hairband to kind of hold things back. And I've had clients doing the hairband trick for literally years, and it works. It works so good. Get like a 12-pack off Amazon that has all the colors. Wear it in the colors of your sports team. Try and even make it look cute and match your uniform. It covers your whole ears, and it is such a great way of disguising those upper ear and upper cartilage piercings. Now, a classic trick for this has also always been using some Band-Aids. A full Band-Aid is really obvious. Those circle Band-Aids work better, or cutting down just the adhesive part of like a skin tone Band-Aid and putting that in like a strip on the front and a strip on the back of an ear piercing, or a tiny little bit over a nose piercing, really work great in a pinch to hide these piercings. Now, a lot of people's skin can be reactive to the adhesive of bandages, and the adhesive of a Band-Aid directly over a piercing for the full length of a sports game while you're sweating and getting kind of gross and kind of dirty, it's not going to be the best for your piercing. Just going to be totally honest. A fully healed piercing is probably going to have no problems with this, but a piercing that's newer or still healing might deal with some irritation from this, might have some issues. Understand that that's a risk you're taking if we're deciding to bandage, and just really thoroughly clean the piercing well afterwards, baby it, and then get in touch with your piercer and see if you can't figure out a retainer situation that's going to be a little bit healthier for your piercing. And then, of course, using makeup. You really want to be doing this with the right jewelry. Those textured hide-it ends from Neometal or those silicone retainers from Chaos are the best way to pull this off, because they have a grippy textured surface on the jewelry that kind of holds makeup a little bit better. But those types of styles, foundation or concealer right over it, blend it out. What piercing? There's nothing there. It looks like there's nothing there. Again, healing piercings, not going to have a great time with this. Makeup's going to cause some irritation. This really works better on healed piercings and comes back to that earlier point of really timing getting pierced carefully if you know you're playing sports and you have these types of events coming up. And of course, if you find yourself in a situation where refs or coaches or judges are just telling you that it has to be removed, you have a difficult decision to make. You can opt to remove the piercing and continue to play, continue to join your team, continue to do whatever. You do risk the chance of a piercing closing or shrinking, especially if it's pierced in cartilage. Cartilage piercings are notorious for closing and shrinking very quickly and very easily. Or you leave the jewelry in and you keep the piercing without any issues, but you potentially don't get to finish playing your game, don't get to do more with your team, don't get to compete. I'd hope that we just get to avoid you having to make a difficult decision like that. But if you are put in that situation, I don't necessarily think that there's a right choice. You have to make the choice that's right for you. If it's the game, it's the game. If it's the piercing, it's the piercing. But let's just try and avoid ending up in that situation regardless. I find that a lot of clients think that if they play school sports, there's no way that they can ever get piercings and have the piercings that they want. And I'm not gonna lie, it's definitely more difficult to balance getting and having piercings when you're playing school sports, but it's also not impossible. Being really mindful about the timelines when it comes to your sports and your games, being patient and opting to get piercings at the time of year that's gonna work out best with your competition schedule is really smart. Being responsible and getting pierced with jewelry like the hide-its that are going to give you a little bit more options for hiding it during games. Opting to get pierced with simple jewelry that's going to be the easiest to heal, so we can focus on getting things healed up enough for you to be able to wear retainers at your games is really important. And also kind of taking it slow. If you know you have games coming up, if you know you play sports, maybe let's not do like a full ear curation and 6 new ear piercings. Maybe let's do 1 or 2 piercings at a time, make sure those heal really, really well, and then see about adding more piercings as time goes on, being a little bit more patient with it. I know that this can be a really difficult subject for a lot of families and a really difficult time of year as you're trying to balance two different things that you're really passionate about and enjoy. I hope that by making this video I can share some education and some workarounds to help make this process a little bit easier and hopefully help more folks who do really love playing sports in school but also love piercings and body modification realize that there is a happy middle ground between the two, and also remind folks that we as piercers are here to work with you. We want to help you with these things. Use us as a resource. Let us help you find retainers. Let us help you find the perfect time of year to get your piercing. And don't be afraid to be patient. A lot of these things take time. Thanks so much for sitting down and hanging out and chatting again, and I can't wait to sit down and talk again soon. Bye.